first time that I've been given the honour of addressing you as a Member of Parliament. Before I was an MP, I worked for Royal Mail for 25 years, and 20 Royal Mail, is there someone here? 20 of those years was as a Unite rep, sitting, as Phil just outlined, on Unite's regional and national LGBT committees, regional committees and executive. So I'm really pleased to be here today. It very much feels like coming home, and it's great to see my comrades like Phil, Jenny and others, and other friendly faces that I know from our community. It was 42 years ago, I know I don't look old enough, but 42 years ago that I took my mum to see the Rocky Horror Show in Catford. Not that that's relevant, but at dinner I said, Mum, I'm gay, and I remember distinctly her response was, yeah, and of course she already knew. And as my friends always say, if I was ever in the closet, then the closet must have been made of glass. And I was incredibly lucky to have friends and family that I could lean on when I faced and overcame the many barriers that most of us have to deal with. But for so many of us, the support isn't there. But that doesn't mean my journey was easy. Dealing with coming out, the stigma at the time, the people our community were losing and not talking about, the feelings of loneliness and isolation led me to move to the northeast to Newcastle in 1989. And until I was elected to represent my wonderful constituency of Jarrow and Gateshead East, I barely came back to London. Not that I ever took on the Geordie accent, as you can hear. But fast forward 40 years, and it very much feels like the progress we had made is being rolled back. I've dedicated most of my political career to campaigning for LGBTQIA plus equality and within the trade union movement. My first political activism was campaigning against Section 28 and highlighting the damage that did to our community. And now we see legislation impacting on the lives of our trans and non-binary siblings, from incoherent advice to schools and a Supreme Court judgment that does not offer clarity, that is driven by hate and has caused confusion and fear. This week, alongside a number of parliamentarians, I wrote to the EHRC regarding the serious concerns that we have with the draft code of practice consultation following the Supreme Court ruling. And the Supreme Court judgment claims it did not permit any erosion of trans rights. Yet the EHRC's interim guidance of the draft code has, as we can see, enabled further discrimination and harassment of trans people. We've seen businesses, organisations, politicians, and even Parliament itself jump to implement changes in provisions that are not warranted, not needed, and are certainly not compulsory. Parliament has tied itself up in knots, apologising to people who verbally abused Barrister Robin Moira White for using the same toilet that she's used for years, when it's Robin that is owed that apology. Parliament has now issued a statement that visitors must use the facilities that correspond to their biological sex. But they've also made clear that the policy is just for visitors. Staff who work on the parliamentary estate aren't under the same rules. And for people who work for MPs, it's up to the individual MPs which toilets their staff use. It's frankly farcical to think that I or any other MP or any employer should have the right to tell a member of staff what toilet they should be using. So I'm pleased that a large number of MPs have signed the letter I wrote challenging this policy, and both Unite and GMB have raised it on behalf of their members in Parliament too. It feels like we're watching history repeat itself. The suffering of LGBTQ plus people has been ignored and exploited by politicians for decades for the sake of expediency, choosing to appease right-wing tabloids and stoke moral panic, rather than show compassion towards the vulnerable and the oppressed. History judges the politicians for their failings around Section 28 now, and it will judge today's crop of politicians for attacking the trans community in the future. A year ago today, which I must say seems like a lifetime, not 12 months, but it gave us 62 LGBTQIA plus Labour MPs alone. And that is something to be celebrated. Being out, being visible is important. Visibility is essential to fighting discrimination and to challenge stereotypes, to showcase people in all our diversity so that people, especially young people, can see someone that they can identify with, to help feel empowered and to live openly and authentically. But if you have a platform and you're not using it to also speak out and fight for equality, fight for our community and fight for workers, then you are letting us all down. Now, I'm a rebel. I've always been a trade union troublemaker, like many in this room, I'm sure. It's also why I'm pleased to represent Jarrow. Jarrow is a rebel town. It's the home of the Jarrow Marchers, of Red Ellen Wilkinson, and we even have our very own Rebel Festival. We have a spirit that says we will not be broken, that we will stand up for workers, for our class, for the most vulnerable in our society. And that is why I've been very vocal in stating that I will have no part in cutting disability benefits. And that's why I voted against it this week. From hundreds of MPs that told the government that these proposals were wrong. I'm really proud of the Labour MPs that pushed until the end, with 49 Labour MPs voting against the bill. And it's thanks to the work of those backbench MPs and the trade unions that supported them that the government was forced into a dramatic climb down, even in the middle of the debate. These concessions alone would have made many breathe a sigh of relief. Removing all cuts to PIP is a huge win. Yet the plans still remove billions of essential financial support and could lead to a 2 or even 3-tier system with 150,000 disabled people still being pushed into poverty. These proposed cuts have been reduced from 6.7 billion to 2 billion, reducing it by over 4 billion, but still taking 2 billion from universal credit from 750,000 people, to me, is still unacceptable. Too often, when politicians disappoint us, we disengage, saying they're all the same, or abandoning party politics to focus only on industrial fights. But without the trade unions and Labour MPs working together this week, we would not have got any changes. Sorry. My politics are rooted in the Labour and the trade union movement. From my decades representing people at Woking Royal Mail, to representing people as a local councillor, to forcing the inquiry into the Post Office Horizon scandal, leading the fight for IVF for same-sex couples, and representing people in Parliament, I will always speak out against injustice. I'm ashamed to say too many colleagues forget where they come from and who put them there. If all of the trade union and TUC MPs had spoken out or voted against the bill, the government would have had to withdraw it completely. But they didn't. But it was brilliant to receive detailed briefings from Unison, GMB, Unite, RMT, PCS and USDOR, amongst many campaign organisations who all set out why the bill should be withdrawn, and an especially useful legal briefing from Equity that I used in my arguments against the bill. I hope all of those unions will be going back to TUC and the MPs that they have relationships with, and letting them know just how disappointed they are and what that means for future support. The coattails of the unions on disability rights that let us down, but on LGBT plus rights as well. Too many people who have been in this room, stood at this podium, speaking up for LGBT plus rights, are now silent in Parliament. Our movement needs them to know that this is not acceptable. I've always, and I always will, stand up for our community in all of our fabulous diversity. I sit on the Council of Europe, the home of human rights, and last year I was appointed as the rapporteur for a ban on so-called conversion therapies, and this means that I'm currently pulling together the motion that will go to the Council of Europe to be voted on in January next year. And once passed, and hopefully it will be sent to all of the 46 countries that are member states, asking them to pass legislation to ban so-called conversion practices. I had hoped that by now we would have had sight of the proposed legislation that's been promised in our manifesto for a fully trans inclusive ban in the UK. But despite the good work by the Minister, Leah Griffiths, who is leading on the legislation, we've not yet had a timetable, but I do believe it's coming. The Council of Europe held evidence sessions on the range of ways LGBTQ women are sidelined, targeted and face discrimination across Europe. And I'm sure it will come as no surprise to you that when I spoke on the panel about the increase in homophobic remarks that I've received in the last 12 months, simply for being open about my sexuality, the women from across Europe all had similar stories to tell. This abuse is always designed to silence us, but I refuse to be silent. In my evidence, I stress the need for us to take an intersectional approach. We know that discrimination has multiple layers. LGBTQIa plus people, black people, women, those with disabilities, all face multifaceted discrimination. And when we acknowledge those differences, it enables us to stand up and support each other in the fight to defend our rights. We have to resist the attempts to pit us against each other. As we in the union movement know, we are always stronger as a collective, and we must not be distracted by the fabricated conflict between trans women and lesbians, which only serves to divide and undermine the fight for equality within our communities. Conservatives that have run public services into the ground, that have decimated funding in our communities, that have given us 14 years of incompetence, brutal cuts, a grotesquely inept handling of the COVID pandemic, caused the cost of living crisis and crashed the economy. And it's a shame that I can't just come here and talk about all the wonderful things that we are doing, because the government is doing some brilliant things. But if I tried to do that without acknowledging what we are getting wrong, you'd rightly have chased me out of the room. Yesterday, we unveiled the roadmap to deliver the new package of workers' rights in the Employment Rights Bill coming into effect from 2026. The Employment Rights Bill will help end years of low-paid, insecure employment that failed our economy, businesses and working people. In the North East, in my area, and where my constituency is, we've received billions of much-needed investment, and despite the bad press that Rachel Reeves is getting, her decision to rip up the Green Book investment rules is a game changer that will enable investment and redistribution like we have never seen before. The changes we have made in education are already improving the lives of children in my constituency of Jarrow and Gateshead East, an area that has 39% of children living in poverty. We will make LGBT plus hate crime an aggravated offence, and we will bring forward a fully trans-inclusive ban on so-called conversion practices. Things wrong, it falls on us in the trade union movement to get them back on track. We know it is the people in this room that are on the front line. It is you who people will turn to when they are being discriminated against in the workplace because of the increase in homophobia and transphobia. And it is you who trans and non-binary people will turn to for support. It is you who people will get advice from when their in-work benefits are being cut, and it is you who need to keep the pressure up on your unions and on your MPs so that we can keep pushing the government to do the right thing. I won't always get it right, and I certainly won't always win, but I do promise that I will always fight for workers, for our movement, for our community. So I'll finish now by thanking you all once again for inviting me. It really is special to stand here. Thank you for everything that you do. I'm looking forward to catching up with people that I know and maybe some that I don't, maybe in the bar later. Thank you, and remember, we are stronger together. They will not divide us. There is no LGBT without the T. Thank you.